the issue that we have, and if you look at the cost of energy on businesses, it is more in this country, and that is because we are uniquely exposed to the gas and global markets. So other countries, for example, in France, they have nuclear that they rely on, and that helps drive down their energy bills. And this is why we were really clear when we came into government. We've got to reduce that exposure, because that's the thing that is pushing up prices. And the more renewables we can get into the system, the more that pushes down the cost of energy.
Last few moments, the energy price cap is set to rise by 4%. That has just been announced. We can speak now to the Energy Secretary, Miatta Fahnbulleh. Good morning.
Good morning.
So it's gone up again, and that increase is likely to wipe out the extra help that Andy Burnham announced when he arrived in number 10. Will the government do more?
Well, look, the first thing I'll say is that we know that families are worried about their energy bills at a time that family budgets are under huge amounts of pressure with the cost of living. That is why the first thing that the Prime Minister did when he came on the job was to take VAT off electricity bills. That is on top of the £150 that we'd taken off bills in April in order to provide people with a bit of breathing space. I think that signals a determination for us to do everything that we can do to support families from the impacts of the war in the Middle East at home and on family finances. That's the number one thing I am trying to do in my role in the job.
So what more help could people expect then?
Well, listen, we will continue to monitor what prices are doing and look at ways in which we support people with affordability. But look, this is really important. I am crystal clear that energy bills, which candidly are an absolute everyday essential, people don't have the choice about whether they use energy or not, are not affordable. So we're looking at a range of things that we can do. But what this price increase shows us is that we are particularly exposed to global fossil fuel markets that we have no control over, and we're determined to break that dependence. And one of the reasons why we've been driving forward with homegrown clean energy that we control at home is in order to make sure that we are delivering energy security here at home that will ultimately impact on financial security.
I want to come on to talk about net zero and those sources of energy, but just so we can get something straight for people who are listening this morning, energy bills are unaffordable for some, maybe even for many, but not for all. Is the government's principle, when it approaches the issue of energy bills and affordability, to give everybody the same discount, as has been the case in the past, or to look at targeting support? And if so, do you have some idea that you could give to listeners about how that support might be targeted?
Well, so we're doing both. So if you take what we've done over the last year, we have provided cuts to the cost of bills. So that £150, the VAT, goes to everyone, because candidly, everyone is feeling the squeeze in terms of the cost of living. But we're then also providing targeted support. So £150 discount, our warm home discount, will go to 6 million families who are under the most pressure, and we must continue doing both. But look, the key point I would make is that ultimately, an essential good has to be affordable. So government has to take action in order to make sure we are driving down energy bills for everyone.
What would
and whether that is, by the way, flooding the market with renewables.
I know you want to come on to talk about that. And Miatta Fahnbulleh, can I just stop you there? We are going to talk about that, but I just want to be really clear about this point. You keep saying that you want bills to be affordable. What is affordable? What's the goal the government's working towards when you talk about affordability? What is affordable?
Well, look, I think it depends on the family, right? If you're a parent and you've got 3 kids, your energy bills will differ. It's the proportion of your family budget it takes up. And what we're seeing across the piece is over the course of the last decade, candidly, energy bills have gone up and are taking up a large proportion of people's budgets. So when when I go around talking to people across the country, which is one of the privileges of my job, people will say to me, the cost of living is biting. And every month, I'm really worried when I open that energy bill. That can't be right. And so we've got to do the job of making sure we are driving energy bills down.
So might we see a social tariff?
And the key point I will make is that there is stuff that government can do to support and protect people from bills in the round. But there is more fundamental reforms that we need to drive through our energy system to make sure that across the piece, whether you're a family with 4 kids or you're a single person or you are a business, the cost of energy is lower than it is today.
I understand. I'm really trying to get some clarity here because I think there will be people listening this morning who are worrying about this question. And I'm struggling a bit with what you're trying to say here because you're saying we're going to do both for everybody all at the same time, and affordable means different things to different people. There's not a lot of
all
clarity.
All of which is true, by the way. All of which is the real world.
But unfortunately, governing means choosing. And at the moment, I'm not clear about the choice that this government is making. Are you talking about something like a social tariff, for example, where those who are struggling the most might get a lower energy rate? Is that something the government's considering?
So, I mean, governing is to choose. And what we are clear about is that there is a baseline set of things that we need to do to drive down energy bills for everyone, because everyone is struggling with the cost of energy. In addition to that, we know that families on low income, families who are feeling the most amount of pressure are the most exposed. And therefore, we have to provide additional support for them. That's why we do have the Warm Homes discount as an example. That's 150 quid that will be going to families, 6 million families under the most pressure at the moment. And we've got to continue doing additional support for families we know need it, but also there is a fundamental principle that energy, which is an essential good, has to be affordable for everyone. So we have to take a set of steps, and that is both short-term things that we can do to protect people, but it's also fundamental reforms that drive down energy bills for good for everyone.
Well, let's talk about those reforms, because you talk often about green energy sources and affordability, but it's not affordable at all, green energy. It's not helping industrial users. There's a new report out today from Civitas. It says Britain is among the fastest countries to move its electricity system away from fossil fuels, but that in the UK, on average, industrial users pay £238 per megawatt per hour for electricity, and that compares to £65 in the US, £138 in Germany and £112 in France. You can see the difference, and you can see the impact it's having on businesses. Why is net zero not paying off?
Well, so the issue that we have, and, you know, if you look at the cost of energy on businesses, it is more in this country. And that is because we are uniquely exposed to the gas and global markets. So other countries, for example, in France, they have, you know, nuclear that they rely on, and that helps drive down their energy bills. And this is why we were really clear when we came into government. We've got to reduce that exposure, because that's the thing that is pushing up prices. And the more renewables we can get into the system, the more that pushes down the cost of energy. So we've got to drive towards clean power. But look, we also need to make sure that we're getting the energy system and the market to work for consumers, and whether that is households or that's businesses. At the moment, it is not filtering through in a way that means energy, an essential good, is affordable, and we've got to deliver that.
It would work better if the gas price didn't dictate the electricity price.
Quite.
Why can't the government go faster to decouple those two things?
So, look, decoupling and delinking the gas price from renewables prices is something I'm very exercised about trying to tackle. What I would say is we've taken some steps. The first step is the more renewables you get into the system, the less impact gas has. So, you know, a whole set of things have been done over the last 2 years to unlock clean power. £100 billion worth of investment is coming in. That's enough in order to power about 23 million homes. So that's the first step. We're also doing things to make sure that, you know, renewables are more reflective of the cost of renewables. So government, for example, are locking renewable providers, generators, into fixed-term contracts, which means that the price is less affected by the gas price on the day.
And all those things help around the edges, but why not just decouple them? I don't understand why you can't just split those two things off.
So all of those things are decoupling. The difficulty that we have is that the way that our energy market is designed means that, you know, there's a techie thing that's called marginal pricing, and the energy that you use at the end, which tends to be gas, sets and dictates the price of everything. Now, that is clearly not working for consumers, which is why we are determined to decouple. And what I would say is that we've taken steps in order to do that. There is more that we need to do, and I'm absolutely determined to get underneath the skin of this.
I have a couple of questions before you go. One of them is that Iran shut down a small UK power plant for 4 days. Lots of people will be deeply concerned about that. What can be done to ensure that it will never happen again?
Well, look, I think it's important to be really clear about that particular instance. It was a small power generator that happened. The key thing is we've got a really resilient system, and at no point was the grid under threat. And in the way that you would expect government to do, we're always looking at things in order to make sure that we've got contingencies and we have a system that is resilient. I'm confident that we do, and we'll continue to make sure that we always ensure that our grid continues to operate. And that as far as
you're not
businesses
worried?
and families,
You're not worried?
I'm not worried,
Okay.
but it doesn't mean that we're complacent.
Finally, Dolly Parton, very sadly, has died.
know.
Your aunt, who has the same name as you, I believe, is a
Yes.
legendary singer
Yes.
herself. So you have a musical pedigree. She was
I've got a terrible voice, though.
Well, I'm not going to ask you to sing, but I thought you might have a reflection on the death of Dolly Parton, because she was such an icon.
Yeah, she was. I mean, and you look, growing up, absolutely iconic. And it's funny, I sort of heard the sort of tragic news today, and I've had Jolene playing in my head all morning.
Me too.
And I think we can all point to songs 9 to 5 that growing up was absolutely iconic today. And I think it is quite a thing when you have those stars that just touch generations and have music that speaks to the age but actually endures through the age. And I think she is definitely one of those. And, you know, we are all incredibly sad but also absolutely grateful for the amazing legacy she's left behind.
Miatta Fahnbulleh, thank you very much for joining us on the programme.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. That was the Energy Secretary there, Miatta Fahnbulleh.